Hi everyone, I wasn't here last week to talk about the series premiere because I just wasn't feeling well. I still want to give my general impressions on the show so far and what I thought about the first episode as well. So if you're here predominantly to hear about the second episode, there's a timestamp in the description if you only want to watch that part. That's okay. Now I'm going to go and be pretty honest here. I've never seen anything of Doogie Howser. Why? Two reasons. Haven't heard of it, because it's probably a generational thing, I guess. And when I wanted to watch something Doogie Howser after seeing this show announced, yeah, that's not working out so well. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you're watching the channel that's all about Disney Plus movies and TV shows. Doogie Kamealoha M.D. is about this 16-year-old girl, played by Peyton Elizabeth Lee, who likes to do teenager stuff, go out with boys, make TikToks, you know how it goes. But there's a twist to this story. She's also a doctor, working many hours at the hospital, and who is her boss? It gets even more complicated. She's actually working under her mother's supervision, and she's played by Kathleen Rose Perkins, who we also saw fairly recently as Miss Goodwin in the Disney Plus original show Big Shot, which is some nice trivia right there. But the premise immediately reminded me of the story of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. I know there's way more examples to find out there, but this is just where my mind went. It's a classic example of a teenager tasked with having to balance his or her life as a life-saving hero and being a teenager, having family issues, parties, and teenage crushes. It's a good template for a relatable story in my opinion. The difference here in Doogie Kamealoha is that Doogie's whole family knows she's Spider-Man. I mean a doctor. But in this version of such a coming-of-age story, that works in its favor because she doesn't have any secrets, and that means more pressure on her, you know? One of the first scenes, and I won't go into spoilers because I'm too fond of my tradition here to do the first episode reviews spoiler-free. In one of the first scenes, we see her literally stepping away from her daily life as she finds someone by the road that needs help, and we see this other side of a 16-year-old girl that we are not familiar with. The main character certainly carries this show so far, in my opinion. The side characters didn't do all that much for me yet, except maybe for Doogie's mom and her youngest brother. Granted, we've only seen the first two episodes, it could change completely. I was totally on board with the main character Lahela, which, that is her first name. Doogie is just her nickname because she reminds everyone of Doogie Howser. So just to be completely clear about this, it's not a bad thing that I didn't get the chance to watch Doogie Howser, I think, because it's literally not canon within the show. This isn't a sequel. This is about a character that's nicknamed Doogie because Doogie Howser is also a fictional show within this universe. So, but no, side characters like Lahela's father and Lahela's brother did nothing for me, as they really felt like one-dimensional cardboard characters to me. Granted, in the second episode they did come a little bit more to life, but I talk about episode 2 in a sec. Doogie's father, and again I'll call Lahela both Lahela and Doogie interchangeably, so you know. But her father is like this surfer dude who just wants to go to the beach all the time and catches octopuses with his bare hands, and just, there's so far nothing to him. Lahela's brother is just a teenage boy that just, there's nothing about him yet. I don't even know how to describe him. In the second episode, we did get a little bit of an insight in how he sees girls, and specifically how many girls he kissed so far. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. But no, the side characters in Doogie Kamealoha M.D. so far, uninteresting. But I found the main character and her relationship with her mother to be quite engaging in the first episode. The way she has to deal with life and death situations on the work floor, which is quite heavy for a 16-year-old, was pretty gripping. And I hope the show really is going to ask the question, no matter how good Lahela is at her job, is it ethically appropriate to have a 16-year-old doctor running around who will probably witness people suffering and dying on a weekly basis? Now, this heavy question isn't addressed yet within the show because it's too early for that, I believe, but it did potentially lay some groundwork for it. Oh, and by the way, one other side character that stood out to me, Doogie's youngest brother. He was cocky, self-aware, and cute at the same time. Big mouth, big heart. He really desires to be older than he actually is. He thinks of himself as someone who is already starting to become an adult man, even though he's 10 years old or something like that. And I really recognized my own brother in him from when he was 10. My brother is like 5 years younger than me, so I really consciously experienced him trying to copy me and others in the family and doing everything he could to act older than his age. It's just the face, you know? We didn't see a lot of characters in this show, but I really feel like I know this character way more than most of the other side characters, partially because he's so relatable. Overall, I enjoyed it because I think the premise works, the main character is really engaging, and her acting is good. It does lay the groundwork to ask some serious questions about, is putting a 16-year-old girl in front of life-death situations all that appropriate? Does it come with big emotional scars that can't be healed? It could go there and delve into some psychological stuff. Again, some characters are almost comically one-dimensional so far, far, but let's see where they go. Oh, and if you haven't seen the show yet and you're thinking about it, don't expect a comedy. Don't expect a comedy. Yeah, it's lighthearted here and there, but nothing too funny overall. This is definitely a drama show. Oh, and if you haven't seen the show yet, also, now it's time to go over a few things that stood out to me in the second episode. Spoilers ahead. You want me to say it again? Spoilers. Spoilers, here we go. Great. There were two things about this episode that really stood out to me, and everything else was, to me, not that interesting. I really think that the first episode was a little bit better. As for example, the relationship issues between Clara and Lahela's father, where Clara is really busy with work, sitting with her laptop, video chatting with colleagues and all that. And then later on, we see them come together again, where Clara sees how much she neglected her quality time with her husband. Well, okay, little subplots like that are in lots of shows, and it's pretty uninteresting here, I think. No, I thought the scene where Doogie is with her best friend in the conference hall, talking about the scientific thesis of "Does Walter like me?" that was really good, I think, as it really shows how much of a stark contrast the two parts of her life are to each other, and in a comedic and subverting expectations kind of way, we see her trying to solve her personal problems using the things she knows from what she does best, researching the science and diagnosing love lives. This is where the strength of the show is, and where it can be a little bit unique. I won't call it that unique of a show overall, but aside from the tropical setting, the show can really put itself out there with blending Lahela's two worlds together in fun and interesting ways. The conference hall scene is definitely a good example of that. Also love the scene where she's reading into all the cases of spinal problems to try and discover why her patient's legs aren't working anymore. We see her great talent of analyzing and reading at great speed in action in a very visual way. We see all the words light up on documents. I really thought it was a cool and effective scene. What I also like about this episode is the conclusion between Lahela and her soon-to-be boyfriend Walter. She discovers that it was all about feelings, that Walter didn't feel comfortable doing that whole romantic date thing, that love is a messy and confusing thing, and that she can't solve the mysteries with science. That is a relatable message, as some things in life just come from the heart and not from the data. Guys, next week we're gonna do episode 3 alone and have just one episode to really dive into, but now I want to leave it at this. I enjoy the show. I'm not hyping to see it every week. The second episode was a little bit more boring, and the side characters are not that great. I'm not raving about it. There are some boring parts, as I said. Some side characters just have yet to prove themselves. But when the show goes to the core of Doogie and her two worlds and how her mind works, I think it's pretty cool. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of this show so far? We have seen 2 episodes, so let me know. Don't forget, if you enjoy the idea of discussing Disney Plus content with us, that red button looks familiar, right? I will come back to you with the new Turner and Hooch today, and I'm watching Marvel's What If, of course. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving that a click. Thanks. For now, have a wonderful day, and see ya.